Raise your hand, just show of hands. I think maybe this is a generational thing, but how many of you all know what the Jerry Springer Show is? Yeah, some of us, okay. It would be like an equivalent, I suppose, of maybe like the Housewives show, possibly the Kardashian kind of vibe, just lots of drama, right? Like major stuff. And so Jerry Springer had this show for several years, and people would get on the show and they would spill all the beans. Like they would just tell it all on public national television, and there were like throwdowns. Like it was something to watch. It was not particularly my favorite thing in life, but it was, some people really enjoyed that kind of thing. And so he became really famous for that. A few weeks ago, this is quite the transition, I realize, but a few weeks ago in my classroom, we're at the end of the year, and it's a little hairy at the end of the year for teachers, and so I decided that I was going to move everybody around and kind of freshen up the room. And my pure goal was to separate some large groups and maybe put them in smaller groups. So I had put these girls over at the end of a table of boys, and they had never sat together before. But I'll just say that the girls were cute, you know, real cute little girls. And so before I knew it, and I pay attention in the room, but I have lots going on, okay? I'm an art teacher, for those of you that don't know. And so at one point I hear this conversation happening at this table, and I'm like, what is going on? And it literally was very similar to a Jerry Springer kind of thing, in the sort of, the boys had decided to tell life happenings because the girls, they had the girls' attention. And so it just, at first it was like, I don't really think that's like art talk. And then it just kept escalating and escalating, and I was like, whoa, did you just say that in class? Like, no. Like, we can't go there. Well, one of the girls grew up in a home that has a mom and a dad. They live on a farm. She's not had much exposure to the things that were happening, just being discussed at the table. And so at one moment she looks at me with these giant eyes and said, I love this table. And I got so tickled that I just, like, what can you do but just die laughing, because it was just, wow on the situations happening in these lives of these kids. And she had never been around anything like that before. The Bible has several things like this. And when you're reading through, you're like, huh? I thought the Bible was all holy and all clean and all, like, God, you know, just, it's sterile. Like, there's nothing that exciting happening. But then you start reading, especially in the Old Testament, and there's a ton of Jerry Springer going on in there, okay? And so today, we're going to look at a story that is very interesting. It's quite dysfunctional. It is about a young person, so it does apply. And it's just the beginning of his story. Okay? So we're going to be in Genesis chapter 37. And it's the story about Joseph. So we're going to dig a little bit deeper into that. But Joseph had what I would explain as grit. G-R-I-T, grit. In the dictionary, the Google defines grit as the combination of passion, and perseverance. It's maintaining motivation despite difficulties. So I think all of us in this room could probably agree that we would like to have grit in our life, because this life, this world's not perfect, and we all need perseverance through difficult times, because we all have difficult times. And so we can all agree that grit is a good thing, I would think, and that me personally, I could just use more. Like, I don't think you ever could get enough perseverance or grit, okay? Joseph was a young guy at 17 whenever we see him in the Bible at the beginning of 37. And it says that he tends to sheep. So he's a shepherd. He works for his brothers. And he has a gift. And his gift is that he literally, God gives him dreams. And then the dreams later on in life, you see how everything ends up turning out, and it comes true, and it's kind of crazy. So he's 17, he's gets this dream from God, and he's so excited about it, he comes to tell his family about it. He's like, you are not going to believe the dream God just told me. And so we're in verse 5. And it says, one night Joseph had a dream, and when he told his brothers about it, they hated him even more than ever. Listen to this dream, he said. We were out in the field tying up bundles of grain, and suddenly my bundles stood up, and your bundles all gathered around and bowed low before mine. His brothers responded, so you think you will be our king, do you? Do you actually think you will reign over us? And they hated him all the more because of his dreams and the way he talked about them. And then it goes on to say he has another dream. And he tells his father this time, and his father even kind of snarks at him and is like, whoa, you're saying that I as your father am going to be bowing to you someday? Like, what kind of audacity do you think? Joseph is very young, and he's very confident. He's very bold. And like Bridget said earlier, number one on the list of things that we have to get grit is to put God first. God has to be the first thing in our life. And that's so easy to say, but it's so hard to do. Because as you are in the shell of your home and the protection of your parents and your family, they do way more for you than you realize. And you will not realize that until you are out of that umbrella, until you are out of that and actually going on your own path. And all of a sudden, you realize that there were all of these things that you thought just happened and just came to you. And it comes in the form of bills, it comes in the form of just simple things like making a doctor's appointment. All of these things that have always been done for us, and then we become adults and we're like, oh, I've never made a doctor's appointment before. What do I do? I have this company calling me asking for this. What do I do? And so these crazy lessons that you're getting ready to have over and over and over, it consumes us. No matter if you're going to a workforce or if you are beginning classes, if you're going to be working your tail off this summer, stacking up savings for your fall decisions, like whatever it is, life is getting ready to get even more busier than you could have ever thought. Because all of these extra responsibilities will slowly start trickling into your responsibility too. And this time of your life when you thought, holy cow, I can't breathe, actually those things shift It's no longer like I have to go to this sporting event or I have to do this. It becomes all of these other tasks. And it's very easy to not put God at the beginning of that. It just is. He quite often gets moved to the back. He's the afterthought. He's the, I need to do X, Y, Z, and then I'll do this for God. I'll try to make it to worship service. I'll try to read my scripture. I'll try, but all of this stuff just gets so consuming. And if you don't set those boundaries initially, it's extremely easy to not put God first. And I am 46, I think, probably years old, somewhere around there. I always lose track of my age. I always round up. And I still have to make a daily decision to put God first. It's not natural. It's not the thing that you just do. It's the thing that you set up in your mind that you're going to do. You plan it out. So Joseph spends time with God. And we know this because God talks to Joseph. And God gives Joseph dreams. And later on in the story, those dreams totally come true and it totally gets crazy. Joseph's brothers dislike him greatly. They feel like he is their dad's favorite. And the Bible says that he was dad's favorite. And that he got special gifts that they didn't get. And so they don't like him already. However, it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. So look down at verse 12. It says, soon after this, Joseph's brothers went to pasture their father's flocks in Shechem. And when they had been gone for some time, Jacob said to Joseph, your brothers are pasturing the sheep at Shechem. Get ready and I'll send you to them. I'm ready to go, Joseph replied. Go and see your brothers and the flocks, how the flocks are getting along, Jacob said. And then come back and bring me a report. He's kind of the dad's spy. So Jacob sent him on his way, and Joseph traveled to Shechem from their home in the valley of Hebron. So little brother Joseph gets the job to go see what big brothers are doing. If they're doing their job, I suppose, report back to dad anything that he needs to know, okay? So here's where a plot twist, where it gets crazy. The brothers see him from afar off, okay? In verse 18. And so they see him coming and they recognize him in the distance. And as he approached, they made plans to kill him. Here comes the dreamer, they said. Come on, let's kill him and throw him into one of these cisterns. We can tell our father a wild animal has eaten him, and then we'll see what becomes of his dreams. Now, we may just passively say, oh man, I'm going to kill him, you know? No, this was legit. This is like a plot to kill the little brother. That's how much they dislike Joseph. Okay? And so their immediate thing was not like, let's roll him around on the ground. Let's thump him. They're literally like plotting to kill him. And so they totally do this. They sell him off to this group of people that come by. And the people come by and they take him, and then they just go off with him. The brothers grab his coat and they dip it in animal blood and take it back to the dad, and they're like, he's gone. He died. He got killed by a wild animal. And it destroyed his father's heart. And this is just like crazy. It is absolutely like, I sometimes struggle with my siblings, but never have I ever thought of something to that capacity. Like, this is disturbing, right? This is really, really, really bad. Somehow, it doesn't tell us how Joseph responds to his brothers. I cannot believe he walked there and was like, okay guys, let me hop in the cistern and you can ride like Shirley. But whenever you have that many big brothers and a little brother, then there's really not much chance. You're outnumbered. If you're the little brother, you know, one big brother, it's a challenge for sure, but more than one, you're done for, right? Like, there's no hope for Joseph. And so they put him in this cistern, and he goes. But what I like about Joseph is that he remains faithful and respectful to everybody as this escalates. Okay? So he gets thrown in a cistern, and then it says in verse 28 that these traders take him. And then in verse 36, it says that the traders take him to town and they sell him, basically, in a slavery auction. And so he is sold to an official that works for the Pharaoh. So here Joseph went from being the boy who has everything to being victimized by his brothers, sold off into slavery, and now all of a sudden in a different land, he has to work as a slave in an official's house. How quickly this escalated. Probably a week-long kind of deal, like it was so fast that his world got flipped upside down. Now, if I were that person, and I loved the Lord my God, and I worshiped Him, and God spoke to me in dream, and He's like, Mindy, this is where you're headed, like someday you're gonna, like Joseph had. And then I get kidnapped by my brothers, sold into slavery by some more people, and working in a palace as a slave, I would be pretty brokenhearted, yes? We would be down. That would be a bottom for us, right? Like that would be the bottom of bottoms for us. But Joseph has such a strong character that that's not at all what he does. And this part of his story blows my mind. Because he does not go back on who he is. He stays strong in his faith, and he is respectful all of the way through. No matter where he's at, he's being respectful to people. And so as he works in Potiphar's house, God blesses him. So it says in, let's flip to chapter 39, verse 1. It says, when Joseph was taken to Egypt by the traders, he was purchased by Potiphar, an Egyptian officer, and Potiphar was captain of the guard of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. The Lord was with Joseph, so he succeeded in everything he did as he served in the home of his Egyptian master. Potiphar noticed this and realized that the Lord was with Joseph, giving him success in everything he did. This pleased Potiphar, so he soon made Joseph his personal attendant. He put him in charge of his entire household and everything he owned. From the day Joseph was put in charge of his master's household and property, the Lord began to bless Potiphar's household for Joseph's sake. All of his household affairs ran smoothly, and his crops and livestock flourished. So Potiphar gave Joseph complete administrative responsibility over everything he owned. And with Joseph there, he didn't worry about a thing except what kind of food to eat. Joseph could have had the attitude of, I'm done. I'm sick of this. I can't believe, God, that you would do this to me. This is not what I signed up for. But instead, he probably was the guy that started scrubbing toilets. And he probably was the guy that had it real bad, on his hands and knees, washing the floor every day. But whatever he did it well. And somehow, through God's blessing on his life, He worked his way up. He did not start out as the boss. He started out as a lowly servant who did his best. And so he came in, and I mean, he scrubbed those toilets like no other person has ever scrubbed a toilet in their life. And his boss looked at him and was like, whoa, those are the cleanest toilets I've ever seen of all toilets in the land. Now you get to clean the kitchen. And he worked himself up all the way through until he was the boss of the entire estate. It says Potiphar had so much confidence in him that he literally, Joseph ran it all, even his finances. And all Potiphar had to do was wake up and eat. And that was it. It had to be a slow process. It had to take time, I'm sure. But he was faithful, and he was respectful, and he worked his way through, always focusing on God. And I know that because I know the end of the story. And so he never once turns from God. He always, every single day, has God first. If you haven't noticed, I don't normally do this, but I do have an acronym kind of going this morning. GRIT. G, put God first. God first, not put. R, respect. And I is probably my favorite of the whole list. Like, I love God, of course. They're all important. But I is integrity. And integrity is defined as doing the right thing when nobody's looking. I heard a preacher once say, it's putting the shopping cart back in the corral in the rain. Had me until rain. It's not cheating on your taxes, even though nobody would know the difference. It's being pure on your screen, even though you're the only one that knows what happens on that screen most of the time. Integrity is doing the right thing when nobody else is paying attention, besides God, of course. So Joseph works his way up, and he is so strong, and he is running this entire house, okay? And so then this is where it gets bad for Joseph. Because you see, the Bible says in verse 6 that Joseph was very handsome and well built. Okay? Somebody's got to be. So it's him. And so it says Potiphar's wife, the boss's wife, soon began to look at him lustful. So she notices that he is handsome and well built. And so she decides that she would like to sleep with him. This is also where the Jerry Springer comes in. The whole thing is like this. And it says, but Joseph refused. Look, he told her, my master trusts me with everything in his entire household. No one here has more authority than I do. He has held back nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How could I do such a wicked thing? It would be a great sin against God. So Joseph taps in here and he's like, not happening. Could he have gotten away with it? Yeah, probably so. If he wanted that to happen, he could have done that. But he had set his standards. He is a man of integrity. He knows that's somebody else's wife, and that's not happening. And as you watch Joseph's story, you see that he has integrity all the way through. That people weren't watching him all the time. Potiphar wasn't like on him nonstop. but he did what he was supposed to do. He kept following God. He kept being respectful to the people around him. Even when they didn't deserve it, he was respectful to them. Even when he did not deserve to be treated that way, he was respectful to people. Even when they stole him from from a very nice home in the suburbs of Beverly Hills, and he's thrown into a distant land and cleaning toilets for someone, he was a man with integrity, and he kept doing the right thing even when nobody was looking. He put God first. He respected others. He had great integrity. And so then letter T, that equals tenacity. I had to come up with a T, right? Tenacity. Tenacity is the unwillingness to quit, especially when things get hard. That's the spot that most of us struggle with. We can put God first. We can be respectful. You can have the most respectful people in the world that have great integrity. But when it gets hard, we have a choice to push through or to quit. And Joseph was a man that had some serious tenacity, because listen, I don't think I could hold a candle to Joseph. I don't think that I could do that. I don't think that I could be that person. Fortunately, I have not had to be in his situation. All four of these areas are important to have grit. To be that person who perseveres and keeps walking forward. If you pull out any one of those spots, it makes life so much more difficult. If you pull God out, you might still do well in life. But the problem is you will take the credit. You will think that you have done so well, and you will be full of pride of how awesome you are, and how you succeeded, and how you did this and you did that. And your pronoun will be all about me. If you take God out of it, you can still live a good life. You can. But it's going to be all about you, and what you've done, and how you are awesome. If you take respect out, you can still have a good life. You're just going to do it alone. Because if you're not a respectful person, people don't want to be around that. If you're given the worst job ever in the world, and he was disrespectful to the toilet manager. I realize this is the Mindy Pinckney version. It's not real. But he would not have advanced. Like, the toilet manager would have been furious at him. And no, you don't get to go clean the kitchen now. Like, you stay here. Or he could have been sold off to another place, like just done with him. If you are not respectful to the people that God puts in your life, your parents, your co-workers, your teachers, for those of you still in school, your future teachers, your college professors, your roommates, your new co-workers you're getting ready to. If you're not respectful to them, you may still succeed. You're just going to be lonely doing it. If you pull out the I, the integrity, you will not like you. Because down deep inside, you will know what you did. It's between you and God. But you will feel that guilt inside of you. If you do it without integrity, that pulls that pride in God, the pride in yourself. You will feel that struggle inside of your heart. And if you pull out the T, you decide to quit and not have tenacity, then you're not going to get very far in your success or your future. No matter what path God has us on, we have to have these characters to succeed, to truly succeed. You can look at a person and you can think, man, that guy has it together. Man, she is killing it. But she could have some issues in some of these areas. He could have some issues in some of this area. And maybe he looks all successful. Maybe he is the exact thing that you have hoped to become your whole life. I want to be just like him when I grow up. But if he doesn't have integrity, if he's not respectful, if he's not following God, if he quits, is that truly the character that we want as people?